Evening, or good morning. Good morning. How is everyone? Well, I can't hear you, so here we are again, going through our Lamrim glance meditation. So we've gotten up to the point of concentration and wisdom. So just as a quick, now I won't go over, as I've done before, all of the verses, as I've done probably more than you wanted, but just to remind you that we've gone over the verses about renunciation of the lower realms, which means working for the happiness of future lives. Then we talked about the renunciation of all of samsara, 2 verses that talked about viewing samsara as like an ocean or a prison camp, And then we talked about the verses generating conventional bodhicitta and Tonglen, and the verses on training the mind, which you're probably familiar with from Venerable Sangikandro's course. And also how to mount that on, to mount Tonglen on the breath. We went over that. And taking of the wishing and engaging vows. And we talked about the first perfections of generosity, the verses on that, on morality, ethics, on patience, enthusiastic perseverance. And last time we were talking about the verses on concentration and wisdom. So just in terms of just going over the 6 perfections, in the when we talk about generosity, sometimes there's a little bit of confusion, because in the sutra tradition, generally we talk about 3 kinds of generosity. Generosity of giving of material things, giving of fearlessness, and giving of the Dharma. If you're familiar with Tantra, you know that sometimes in the Tantric vows, it's talked about 4 kinds of giving that you should do 6 times a day. So the extra, the same 3 plus the giving of love. I haven't seen, maybe it's in some texts, maybe some of you have heard why there's that difference, but there are different enumerations of things in different traditions. So that shouldn't confuse you, in case you've heard, in case you're familiar with Tantra talking about 4 kinds of giving. I made a couple of notes here, believe it or not. Then when we talked about the perfection of ethics or morality, Shila Paramita, we talked about not giving up the vows of pratimoksha, bodhisattva vows, or the tantric vows, even at the cost of one's life. Then that's the ethics of abandoning negative actions. And then the collection of virtuous dharmas, which includes collecting virtuous karma and also developing all sorts of wisdom. Once when I was visiting Taiwan many, many years ago for a conference, Lama Yeshe had asked me to go there. He had been invited, so he asked me to go to his place. And there was one Tibetan Lama in, I guess it was Taipei, who was telling me about how he was learning from the local Chinese. He was Tibetan, but living in Taipei. He was a Rinpoche. And he was learning all of the different kinds of ways that they had of healing and, you know, in their own medicine and so forth. So that would, even things like that would be included in collecting virtuous dharmas, but learning the Dharma, developing clairvoyance and other kind of powers. And then the morality of benefiting sentient beings. We talked about that. And in that context, I wanted to mention Khyentse Song Rinpoche used to say that one of the most important things when one was practicing in order to make realizations was to purify the infractions that you've made in this lifetime and even previous lifetimes of our vows. And the Ganden Lagama, the verse, the very short Guru Yoga that we say that the Lord of the 100 deities of Tushita, the Lama Tsongkhapa's short Guru Yoga, there in the verse about in the seven limbs on confession, it says especially infractions of the 3 vows. So when we talk about, Song Rinpoche used to say that sometimes in the time of the Buddha, some of the monks were not able to make realization. Say some of the young monks, maybe they were swimming in the lake and doing things that they weren't supposed to be doing. And the Buddha told Shariputra, I believe, to have them do sojong, which is the bi-monthly confession, because they weren't able to memorize or understand things. And soon after doing that, they began to make some progress in their studies, both the memorization and studies and so forth. So that's also included in the perfection of morality, to purify the infractions that we've encountered. Then when we talked about enthusiastic perseverance or effort, it doesn't mean it's a joyous effort or joyous perseverance kind of gets the essence of it. It's not just ordinary effort like we do in worldly things, but it's having joy in doing virtuous actions. And that's the antidote to laziness. So I'd mentioned there were, in addition to the usual kinds of laziness that we think of as obstructions to perseverance, such as procrastination and the attachment to negative actions, which means wanting to watch TV or to do other things rather than practicing the Dharma. One of the major obstacles to perseverance is a sense of inadequacy. Maybe you could say low self-esteem, which rebels, thinking, oh my gosh, to work for all sentient beings till the end of samsara, that's just too much. That's one kind of inadequacy. And another one is thinking that I just can't do it. I just don't have the ability. So especially, even though the verse in the Guru Puja is talking about using compassion, out of compassion for sentient beings to work tirelessly for their welfare, even if you have to spend eons in the lower realms for sentient beings. It also having a sense of wisdom, of emptiness, that realizes that all of these things are empty. All the things that we imagine as in obstacles that we can't overcome, they can be overcome. They're not truly existent. They're not inherently existent. So I mentioned that a little bit. And then we talked about the perfection of dhyana, of concentration or meditation, depending on how you like to translate it. And I mentioned there and in the perfection of wisdom, both of them, the perfection of concentration is mainly talking about developing single-pointed concentration, shamatha, and to have actual, even just to have the perfection of concentration doesn't, to have shamatha doesn't mean you've perfected concentration, but in developing the dhyanas, the first concentration, second concentration, and so forth, the four concentrations of the form realm, and the four concentrations of the formless realm, you need to have developed pliancy and the bliss of pliancy. And I had mentioned the sequence of that. First of all, as you've gotten up to the 9th level of concentration, where you're able to concentrate very well without being overcome by a scattering mind of excitement, where you go to objects of attachment. Your mind is not overcome even by subtle sinking. And you develop, first of all, an omen that you're going to be able to achieve these concentrations, which is that the brain feels heavier than it was before. And then you develop pliancy of mind, suppleness of mind, then suppleness of body as the winds within your body begin to circulate in a more unified way. And then the bliss of physical pliancy, and finally the bliss of mental pliancy, which is said to be greater than, for shamatha, is said to be greater than the bliss of sexual excitement. The same sequence takes place in the perfection of wisdom. And in that verse in our text, it actually mentions, says, I seek your blessings to complete the perfection of wisdom through the space-like yoga of single-minded placement upon ultimate truth, conjoined with the pliancy and great bliss induced by the discriminating wisdom analyzing suchness. So there one is developing what's called vipassana, not just shamatha, that is like the ability to analyze within that concentrated mind. And generally, there are two kinds of vipassana. There's mundane vipassana, which you use to develop the first, second, third, fourth concentration of the form realm and the formless realms. That's called mundane vipassana. What you do is you look at the defects of the lower realm where your mind is at that point, let's say the desire realm you start out at, and you think of you contemplate the benefits of the first concentration, how all of the qualities are better there. The mind is more calm, there's less faults, certain delusions don't arise as readily. And you analyze that way within concentration, and you have to learn again and again how to do that without disturbing the concentration. And as you do that, that's called mundane vipassana. Rather than that, you can, from the very beginning, meditate on what's called supramundane vipassana, where you analyze the ultimate nature of phenomena. From the Prasangika Madhyamaka point of view, it means analyzing how phenomena are empty of inherent existence. Within that concentrated mind, and as you do that, you go through stages, and at the end of those stages, just as in the end of the 9 levels of developing shamatha, the end of those stages, you again develop pliancy or suppleness of mind, then the suppleness of body, which is greater than the suppleness of body and mind that you found when you develop shamatha, then the bliss of suppleness of body, physical suppleness, and finally the bliss of mental suppleness. And even from that, before you develop actual fully qualified vipassana, almost as though you have to let the mind settle down a little bit. The ecstasy is so great, it said. I have not experienced that before you actually have that shamatha. So the reason for that is, if you just have an understanding of emptiness, which we haven't really talked about the logical reasons yet for that. If you just have an understanding of emptiness without concentration or wisdom, well, without concentration, you can't really see that, you keep your mind focused on the meaning that you've ascertained, the meaning of emptiness. You see it fleetingly, like looking at murals with in a darkened temple with a butter lamp that is being buffeted by the wind, so it's flickering. So you need concentration to be able to see that. And in addition to that, you need to have a penetrating wisdom that's able to analyze, to see more clearly, a wisdom consciousness that is unified with that concentration. That's what's called the unification of shamatha and vipassana. So we went over that a little bit. So I just wanted to mention, when you do these verses, this would be an appropriate time to do analysis of emptiness. And if you are able to get a mental image of emptiness, to try to hold that single pointedly when you do the verse on the perfection of concentration, the perfection of meditation. And then when you do the verse on the perfection of wisdom, the first verse here, to try to analyze within that concentration more deeply. So what does it mean to meditate on emptiness? Well, from the whole, to really understand emptiness and how to meditate on it, Lama Zopa Rinpoche used to say, you really have to study the great texts by Nagarjuna, Chandrakirti, Aryadeva, Buddhapalita, and so forth, the original charioteers, so to speak, the original individuals who had opened up the Buddha's intention on that. Really just having a casual understanding, and just from the Lamrim Chemo or something, or from shorter Lamrims, maybe it's you're not able to get into it very deeply. When we studied Chandrakirti's Madhyamaka Vatara, which is the entry into the middle way, which is the great text that usually the Tibetans use, and I'm sure Ken Rinpoche, Geshe Trini, either he has taught you that or will teach it sometime. Usually we use Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary for that. It's called Gompa Rapsel. So when Geshe Zopa was teaching that to us over, I think it was 5 years at Deer Park in the summer sessions, we were able to go into detail about that. The main thing that Geshe-la emphasized at the beginning, in order to get an understanding of emptiness, maybe I can summarize very briefly. If phenomena existed the way that they appear to us, and one has to understand how they seem to appear to us, as existing really from their own side. From some of the lower schools, we can say, let's say from the Chittamatra point of view, the mind-only school, we might say they appear to exist externally to us. That's a stepping stone. There seems to be some way of appearing that ultimately we will decide through analysis they don't really exist that way. Like illusions, like dreams, like when you wake from a dream, that seems so real at the time, And just waking up from that dream and you realize, oh, it seems so real, but it doesn't exist like that at all. That was just a dream. Reflections and so forth. So from the highest philosophical school in Buddhism, at least what we consider from the view of emptiness, we call not only the Madhyamaka school, but amongst the various practitioners of Madhyamaka, what's called the Prasangika school. From that point of view, phenomena appear to be existing from their own side without the need of us giving a name. I won't say, even when we look at our, not talking about external objects, but even our own self, the self appears to have a mode of existence that's just there, existing from its own side. That's called the mode of its appearance is as though it were existing inherently. That means from its own side. So the basic argument that Nagarjuna uses in his fundamental wisdom and that Chandrakirti and Lama Tsongkhapa explain is that let's take impermanent phenomena to begin with. Let's say a sprout, the generation of a sprout. A sprout, if a sprout were to exist inherently, it would have to have been produced because it's an impermanent phenomenon. It had to come into existence. And that production can either be produced from itself, that is, that it existed a previous moment and that previous moment gave rise to the next moment of itself, or from the transition from the seed to the sprout. One moment there's a seed, then the next moment it's a sprout. That somehow the sprout existed inherently in the seed. That's called generation from self. Or another alternative is that things are produced from something which is different than themselves. That is, that the seed is somehow different than the sprout. That would be called generation from other. I wish I could see your faces to see if this is making any sense to you. Maybe not. Maybe it is. Let me see. Oh, okay. There are two other possibilities that have to be gone through, that that things could be produced from both self and other, or the things are produced without any cause whatsoever. So generally, you can relatively, with logic, you can overcome the production from self, because if something was produced from itself, it would never change. You wouldn't be able to have things changing. They would always have been produced from themselves in the past, and they would continue to be the same in the future, being born from itself. The big problem comes in being produced from other. That is, that the seed and the sprout are different than one another. I say, yeah, different. Generally, even from when we talk about conventional production, the sprout is conventionally different than the seed. But when we talk about delineating emptiness, trying to realize emptiness, we meditate on the fact that what appears to be the transition from the seed to the sprout, or from one moment of the self to the next moment of the self, just from one thing which is the cause of the next thing, they seem to be inherently different. And that is what is being refuted here. You think about this. If two things, one is the cause of the other, the seed or the sprout, or one moment of the self giving rise to the next moment of the self, if they were inherently different, they would be totally different. They would have no connection, the same way that you would not expect a barley seed to give rise to an apple tree or an apple sprout, because they're inherently different. You would not expect if a cow were to give birth to a horse. You know, they're different. So if the two things that are causally related, the seed and the sprout, or one instance of the self and the next instance of the self, or of any impermanent phenomena, if they were inherently different, well, there'd be various kinds of absurd consequences, which is kind of the etymology of the name of the Prasangika school. In Tibetan, we say Tengyurpa, Telgyurpa, which means consequentialist. There would be an absurd consequence if things were produced from something which was inherently different. Anything could be produced from anything else, because different things are inherently, would be inherently different. So if you have a chance to study this subject in detail, you can go through those meditations. For instance, in the Lamrim, especially in the Pabonka's Liberation of the Palm of Your Hand, we usually talk about the 4 essential points in meditating on the selflessness of the person. This is another approach. If the self existed the way it appears, and the way that it appears has to be, you have to find the way that it appears in your own experience. It seems to be existing from its own side to your mind. When you have a very calm mind and you look, maybe you have to instigate the sense of self. Think that you've been wrongly accused. You know, you're a thief. And what do you mean? I didn't steal anything. There's a sense of I appearing to your mind that can be momentarily very vibrant. Oftentimes it's there in a very subdued fashion. So first of all, what you have to do is recognize the object of negation, the appearance of an inherently existent self. This could be the subject of a whole course on emptiness, right? So this is just one little point here. Then you have to develop an understanding that if it was inherently existent, it would one of the logics you can use is that it would either have to be inherently one with your mental physical complex, the 5 skandhas. It would either have to be one with the skandhas, identical to the skandhas, or different from the skandhas. In general, you can say if 2 things exist, they either have to be the same or different. Would you go along with that? There's no third or fourth alternative. 2 things, let's say dog and dog, they're the same. Dog and cat are different. If 2 things exist, they either have to be the same or different. So if the aggregates that make you up, which are from the Prasangika point of view, the basis of imputing the I, if the aggregates exist and the self exist, they either have to be the same or different. Actually, conventionally speaking, the aggregates and the self are conventionally different. They're different things. But when the way that the I appears as inherently existent, if it was inherently existent and the aggregates were inherently existent, they would necessarily have to be inherently one or inherently other, inherently different. If they were inherently one, just as there are 5 aggregates, there would have to be 5 selves. Or just as there's one self, there would have to be 1 aggregate, both of which can be analyzed over, this is what you would do necessarily in analyzing emptiness. The consequences of that being absurd. If they were inherently different, the inherently existent self would have no relation to the aggregates whatsoever, which can be refuted. Kapsula Rinpoche used to give the example that if you stick your hand with a pin or a thorn, there is a sense that you have injured the self. You haven't just injured the form aggregate, the body, which is sort of owned by the self. There's a sense that the self and the body are not inherently different. There are many, many reasons that you can use to refute this. When you see through analysis that the sense of the inherently existent self is logically indefensible, that it is not, the body is not inherently one with the aggregates, it's not inherently different than the aggregates, the conclusion that you would come to at the end is that such an inherently existent self is itself non-existent, is void, is empty, that the self that does exist, conventional self, is empty of being inherently existent. Now, you've probably heard this other presentations of emptiness, but just as a little review. So when we talk about the perfection of wisdom, hear this verse 106, I seek your blessings to complete the perfection of wisdom through the space-like yoga of single-minded placement, equipoise, on ultimate truth, which means that, let's say, the self is not inherently existent. That is what's called ultimate truth. Why is it called ultimate truth? It's not a conventional truth or a truth for a deluded mind. From the point of view of the Prasangika school, Nagarjuna's view, something that is true, the way that it appears is how it actually exists. Its mode of appearance accords with its mode of subsistence, the way that it actually is existing. The only thing that exists the way that it appears is emptiness. Do you believe that? Let's say the way this pair of glasses appears from a Prasangika point of view, we're not talking about other things, but how it appears to be inherently existent. Why do things, conventional things, appear to be inherently existent to our minds? Because of imprints of ignorance from beginningless lifetimes in the past that have left that very strong impression in the mind, even so they, not even that you think about them as inherently existent, they appear to your senses as inherently existent, although they are not. when you analyze something, the self or a seed or these glasses or anything else, fences, trees, when you analyze them and you realize that the way that they appear, that is to be inherently existent, somehow findable within their basis of parts, which are technically called the basis of imputation, that you impute the phenomena on, you recognize at that point a mere vacuity. That's what's called this space-like yoga of single placement, single-minded equipoise upon ultimate truth. Ultimate truth here is emptiness. And in space-like meditation on emptiness, what is appearing to your mind is just a vacuity, like space, just like when you recognize that there is no obstructing contact, which is the meaning of space in Buddhism, the lack of obstructing contact. That's an object of mental consciousness. It's not an object that you see. You might think that you see the absence of obstruction, but how do you know until you actually use something obstructing? You move your hand there to see. It might be that there's a crystal wall or glass between you and something else. So space, actual space, non-obstructing space, and emptiness are the same in being mere negations of something. Emptiness is the mere negation of inherent existence. So when you do the verse on concentration, which was the previous verse 105, it said to take emptiness as your, let's see, on the nature of all phenomena, their lack of true existence, that last line there. Having abandoned the faults of agitation, Jing means sinking, Gopa means excitement or agitation. Those are different kinds of and then the other kinds of wandering. Having abandoned those faults, and you go through the various levels to develop single-pointed concentration, you would then concentrate on the meaning of emptiness that you had delineated through analysis. This is one way to do that. Or you could develop single-pointed concentration first, and then within that to analyze a little bit and try to develop the understanding of emptiness within that concentration. Actually, to do that properly, you have to use Vipassana, you have to use analysis. It's said that even before Lama Tsongkhapa developed Vipassana, he had an understanding of emptiness through logic, and he used, like say in verse 105, he placed his mind single-pointedly on that. He could remain in that for hours, for maybe days. But that would not yet be the perfection of wisdom. That needs the ability to analyze within that concentration, such as in verse 106. So when you do these two verses, you can use some of your time to meditate on emptiness. Okay, so although that subject could be the subject matter of an entire 5 years of Geshe studies, we'll go on to the next verse. So the next verse, the illusion-like practice of emptiness during post-meditation. So what is this talking about? In your meditation on emptiness, in meditative equipoise, all that appears to your mind is vacuity. Let's say you've take the self as the object that you're investigating, the appearance of an inherently existent self. your own self. And you recognize that although it always is appearing to you as existing from its own side, in actuality, in reality, it is empty of that appearance. It is actually void or empty of inherent existence. And you focus only on that vacuity. Nothing else is implied, how the self is. When you arise from that meditation, inevitably, as we're still within cyclic existence, the self appears to your mind again as existing inherently. If you've ever had an experience, a little bit of taste of success in meditating on emptiness, when you arise from that meditation, it's almost shocking. What you just disproved as existing, an inherently existent I, seems to be appearing there again. If you had success in analyzing its emptiness, though, by the force of that memory that it is empty of inherent existence, there's almost like an opportunity for you to chuckle, to laugh, that you know that it doesn't exist, but it's still appearing as though it truly exists, as though it inherently exists. So this verse, I seek your blessings to perfect the Samadhi on illusion. You may tinzin, Zokpa Jingilo. Zokpa means to complete, or here it says perfect, to complete the Samadhi on illusion, or the illusion-like Samadhi in the commentaries, by realizing how outer and inner phenomena, while lacking true existence, they still appear, or let's say they appear, although lacking true existence, in the same way that an illusion appears, the same way, even though we know that, let's say if a magician were to conjure up, and this is not talking about the ordinary kind of magic that you see, that you hear about on TV or in, what's the place called in America, Las Vegas or something, you know, where the magician does some sleight of hand or something like this. This is talking about the classic kind of magicians that had psychic powers in the past, that were able to induce the appearance to the audience. They would say, they would take a stone, a pebble, or a little piece of wood, and by through their magic, they would use mantra, or let's say, let's say mantra, to bless that stone, and also to induce within the audience a certain suggestibility, so that they would actually see that transformed into a horse or elephant. The magician themselves, he or she, would also see that horse or elephant that they had conjured up, but they, knowing they'd actually produce the illusion, they would know it is not existing that way, that that's just an illusion. Whereas the audience, due to their predispositions, when they see a horse or elephant, they would think, oh yeah, that's really there. Wow, man, wow, where did that come from? They would have an appearance of a horse or an elephant or whatever you're producing, flower or durian, a big durian, a huge durian. They would have that appearance, and they would believe that. In Tibetan terminology, we talk about Nang Shen. Nang means appearance. Shenpa means adhering to that, believing that. So the magician would have the appearance of, let's say, the durian, I'll use Singapore example, but they wouldn't have the Shenpa, they wouldn't have the adhering to that, believing that that's actually there. Whereas the audience that had been affected by that would have both the appearance and the belief in that, the adherence to that. Someone who walks up, little, the neighborhood kid who walks up was not affected by the magician's mantra and suggest the power of suggestion and so forth. They would not see the illusion. The magician is there. He or she themselves would have been affected by this. They're actually creating the illusion, so they'd see the illusion, but they wouldn't believe it. The audience that had been present during the conjuring up would see it and believe it. Someone who came from the outside would not see it and therefore would not believe it. So they're just saying, what are these people doing? They're looking in space and marveling and so forth. This is what's called, what is talking about illusion, this is what's being meant here. So Chinang Chunam, that means outer and inner, external and inner phenomena. That means inner phenomena means phenomena that are conjoined with consciousness. Say the body. The body is conjoined with consciousness. And of course, the mind is conjoined with consciousness. External phenomena or outer phenomena means phenomena that are not conjoined with consciousness, such as stones, trees, unless you have a non-Buddhist view that trees have consciousness, walls, the wind, the sky, and so forth. Everything that exists can be included in outer and inner phenomena. So that's kind of what's meant here. Chinang Chunam, all outer and external and inner phenomena appear, although they appear like illusions. Gyuma means illusion. Milam means dream. So what does that mean? When you have a dream, as I mentioned before, while you're sleeping, and maybe if you're like me in this time of the pandemic, you're having even more dreams than usual. I can't believe sometimes. When you wake up from that dream, which seemed so real at the time, when you wake up from that dream, you recognize, oh, that was just a dream. I didn't flunk my final examination. I didn't win the Singapore lottery. I didn't, have a date with Richard Gere, whatever, There can be bad dreams or good dreams. Whatever the dream, you recognize later that although it appeared, and you have a memory of that right when you arise from the dream, that it didn't exist that way at all. So this is another example of this illusion-like meditation on emptiness, that the dream state here is like what we're experiencing now. The waking state is like the meditative equipoise that you had before, when you knew it didn't exist at all. So outer and inner, external and inner phenomena, although they appear like illusions to us, or like dreams, or like the what's the word? The form of the moon in a clear lake. How does it translate here? A moon's image on a still lake. Well, you could say still, I guess. Lucid, in a lucid pond, still, that's not disturbed by ripples and so forth. I guess that's a good translation, a still lake. There's a confluence of conditions here. there's actually the moon in the sky, pointing up there. There are no clouds that obscure the appearance, the reflection of the moon in the water. There's a reflection of the moonlight in the water that appears to be an orb of the moon. You know, if you've seen a deer or a kitty cat, or you yourself might be fooled sometime when you see a reflection like that that looks like something real. The accumulation of all of these dependently arising conditions give rise to the appearance of, you know, a moon in the body of water, in the pond or the lake or the body of water. It could be a puddle, you know, as you're walking along on the one of the paths in Singapore after the rain, and in the evening, and the full moon is reflected in a pool. You might see it in something there, and you realize there's no, you know from your own experience, although it's appearing to your direct eyesight, your sense consciousness, as being a moon, your mental consciousness knows at that time it's not a real moon. This is how is explained in the commentary, these three examples that are given here in Multu Dharmabhadra's commentary. So, although outer and inner phenomena appear as, you know, like illusions, that is to say, they seem real, and they appear real, and we believe they're real. They appear as like dreams, in the same way that in the dream it seems so real, but when you wake up, you recognize that it was just a dream. Or they appear like the reflection or the form of the moon in a still pond or still lake, river, whatever, puddle. So, although they appear that way, Nangyang, Dempa Mepe Sultogne, having realized the way in which they are not true, and here that means that they are not truly existent. Gyume Tinzin Zokbar Jingilov, grant me blessings to complete the Samadhi of illusion, or the illusion-like Samadhi. So what that means is, generally, when we talk about meditation on emptiness, there are two parts of it. The space-like meditation and meditative equipoise, when all you see is emptiness. And then when you arise from that, emptiness no longer is appearing directly to your, or appearing as a mental image to your mental consciousness. Your sense consciousnesses now are active, and what is appearing to you are phenomena, outer and inner phenomena, as though they were truly existent. But through the force of your having an experience of emptiness, when you arise from that meditation, you recognize that they don't exist the way that they appear. They are actually empty of a true existence, in the same way that illusions appear as real, but they're not. Well, in the case of the illusion, the example is most of us are like the participants who have been hypnotized by the magician, or suggested by the magician. The magician is like maybe the Arya Bodhisattvas, or bodhisattvas who've realized emptiness, but still when they arise from that meditation, still things appear, but they know that they are not inherently existent. And the kid who walks by and is not affected by either is like the Buddha. Although that might seem contradictory to you, like the kid is like the Buddha, because they don't appear to be truly existent. And of course, there's no adherence to them. There's no belief that they're truly existent. Of course, the Buddha, unlike the child, unless the child has clairvoyance, maybe a person who comes in who has clairvoyance and recognizes the minds of the others, the Buddha knows what appears to us, how it appears to us, and can feel sympathy in the same way that we can feel sympathy for or compassion for someone who has a sense of paranoia, thinking that everyone is out to get them, or imagines all sorts of things. So to really have an appreciation of the meditation on illusion-like samadhi, you really have to have an experience, first of all, of meditation on emptiness. Okay? I seek your blessings to perfect the samadhi on illusion, or illusion-like samadhi. The word like is not in the verse, but in the commentaries, it says illusion-like samadhi. By realizing how outer and inner phenomena, external and inner phenomena, although they appear to be like an illusion dream or the form of a moon on a still lake, they actually, in essence, in reality, lack true existence. Okay. So then the next verse is talking about training the mind in the particular, in the special view of the Majjhamaka. So that verse is Korde Rangshindu Sam Mebadang. There is not even an atom of inherent existence in samsara or beyond samsara. This is the mundane or the supramundane. So here it says samsara nirvana. Here, kor means korwa, means samsara. This is the Tibetan word for samsara. De just means past, but it can mean like the word for nirvana in Tibetan is what do I say? Nganen le deba, pass beyond sorrow. So Korde is an abbreviation for samsara and nirvana. There's not even not a single particle, the minutest amount of inherent existence anywhere. If there was anything that had even an atom of inherent existence, everything would be inherently existent. So that's one thing. And it says dang means and. Gyude tendel lua mebani. That means that the dependent arising of cause and effect is infallible, as it says there in, what's the other words we use sometimes? Lua meba means I can't remember the English word, getting too old. Essentially, you can say infallible. Yeah, that means that they are not, whenever there is a karmic cause, it will definitely bring about a result unless it is hindered in some way through purification or through getting angry. Say if you create virtuous karma, that can be also destroyed through anger. But unless it is hindered in some way, causes will always bring effects. And effects always come about because of causes. That's infallible. those two facts for us now seem to be quite distinct. If we meditate on emptiness, it almost seems like there's no world out there at all. If we have a space-like meditation on emptiness, everything is lacking inherent existence. All appearances that of outer and inner phenomena seem to be inherently existent, but they are not. So from that point of view, at the beginning of our practice of the view of emptiness, we have a sense that when we have a good understanding of emptiness, how could cause and effect exist? Because phenomena are not inherently existent. They don't, there is no, although they appear to be inherently existent, there's nothing there. Yet, when we think about cause and effect, when we think about karma, we're meditating on the conventional without talking about emptiness. Very hard to understand how cause and effect can exist if phenomena are empty of inherent existence, if they're not really there. We give the example of a seed and a sprout and so forth. So the middle way view, middle way is what we translate as Madhyamaka or Uma, the Tibetan word Uma. You know Uma Thurman, the movie star, ladies movie star, Robert Thurman's daughter. I think he named her for two reasons, because Uma is in Tibetan Buddhism means the middle way, but it also in Sanskrit, Uma is the name of Shiva's consort. So there's a little play on words there. I think that's when we had dinner one time, we mentioned. So when you have a correct view of emptiness, these two things are not contradictory. They can be held in the mind at one time. In fact, they actually support one another. The fact that phenomena are not inherently existent means they can change, and cause and effect can appear. So samsara and nirvana lack even an atom of inherent existence, and cause and effect, the dependent arising of cause and effect is infallible. I seek your blessings to discern the meaning of Nagarjuna's thought, Ludup Gongdong. The gong means his intention, the meaning of Nagarjuna's intention, that the two are not contradictory, but mutually complementary. So when you meditate on this verse, you can, for instance, consult Lama Tsongkhapa's 3 principles of the path. You know this verse? Can you see it the right way? I don't know. Can you read that? Maybe it's backwards to you. So when we talked about the correct view, when we talk about verses, I think 10, it starts with 10, doesn't it? Yeah, so verse 10, this is a translation by Geshe Sonam Rinchen and Ruth Sonam, his translator, Ruth Sonam. This is a Snow Lion text. So verse 10 says, whoever sees the causes and effects of all phenomena in cyclic existence and beyond. So here, instead of saying samsara and nirvana, it says core day means cyclic existence and beyond. Whoever sees that these are unfailing or infallible or inevitable, you know, there are incontrovertible, I think is how Jeffrey Hopkins translates midua, and thoroughly destroys the mainstay of misconceptions That means the mind that's grasping to inherent existence, who destroys that, walks on the path that pleases the Buddha. So that means that to the mind that sees no contradiction between these two, this is the path that pleases the Buddha. Verse 11 in Lama Tsongkhapa's Three Principles of the Path says, so long as the understanding of appearances as unfailing dependent arisings, as infallible dependent arisings, as long as that and emptiness, free from all assertions of true existence, as long as they seem disparate, that means contradictory, sort of like in one case you have one thing, in another case you have another, separated, you still do not comprehend the subduer's thought. Okay. Well, okay, you have your own translation. Maybe that's going to be a little bit different unless they have the same thing. Verse 10, here in verse 11, if the appearance of dependent relation, which is unbetraying, infallible, non-deceptive, is accepted separately from emptiness, as long as they are seen as separate, then one has not realized the Buddha's intent. Okay. And then verse 12, when the two do not alternate, I'll read this one first. When the two do not alternate but are simultaneous, that is, when within your mind you can see the complementary nature. They're not either you believe cause and effect or you believe emptiness. They both appear simultaneously, and merely seeing dependent arising as unfailing, that is cause and effect, as infallible, destroys through certainty how the object is perceived. Analysis with regard to the view is complete. How do you have it translated? If these two realizations are happening simultaneously without alternation, and from merely seeing dependent arising as completely unbetraying, the definite ascertainment, I'm not sure with definite ascertainment, there's one word there that's could be translated as either definite or ascertainment, comes that completely destroys the way all objects are apprehended as truly existent. At that time, the analysis of the ultimate view is complete. So within your own meditation on emptiness, as you become more and more familiar with emptiness and the fact that even though phenomena are empty of an inherent existence, due to the imprints of ignorance within our minds, the beginningless, the imprints implanted from beginningless time cause us to apprehend these appearances that do have a logical consistency, but they appear, that is the law of cause and effect, they're infallible. That is to say, they will definitely, causes will definitely give rise to results and so forth, even over long periods of time. Karmic imprint left in our mind, maybe many, many lifetimes, thousands, millions of lives later, it can ripen. But these things lack, the appearances appear infallibly, but they lack the inherent existence that our mind attributes to them. When you can hold both of those together, you've reached the completion of the correct view, it says there. How does it say here? Analysis with regard to the view is complete. So then one additional then the additional verse that goes beyond what we had in our the verse here in the Guru Puja glance meditation, where he said, Chinang Chinam, I seek your blessings to perfect the Samadhi of illusion by realizing how outer and outer. No, the next one. Samsara and nirvana lack even an atom of inherent existence, and cause and effect and dependent arising are infallible. I seek your blessing to discern the meaning of Nagarjuna's thought, that these two are mutually complementary and non-contradictory. So that's essentially what we just talked about there. But the next verse in Lama Tsongkhapa's Three Principles of the Path, verse 13, is kind of Lama Tsongkhapa's special interpretation, which he asserts is actually there in the Prasangika view, in Nagarjuna's view. One can maybe meld that into, when you talk about Nagarjuna's view, and that's this. Further, when you know how appearances preclude the extreme of existence. What does that mean? Generally, when you see appearances from other points of view, that usually excludes the extreme of nihilism, that phenomena don't exist at all. That might be a wrong view of looking at emptiness, right? Wrong view of thinking about emptiness is that phenomena don't exist at all. From a Prasangika point of view, at least certainly in the Gelugpa tradition, phenomena do exist conventionally. They appear, but they're actually empty of an inherent existence. And so that appearance from Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings that he received from Manjushri and his own analysis, from Nagarjuna's analysis, from the Gelugpa tradition, those appearances are pramana, they're valid. The law of cause and effects has a certain validity. In some of the Buddhist schools and some of the Tibetan schools, they would say, although they appear, they don't exist at all. From Lama Tsongkhapa's point of view, from the Gelugpa tradition, we say that phenomena do have a conventional existence that can be proved through logic, can be verified. Okay, so furthermore, so I'll read this one first. Further, when you know how appearances preclude the extreme of existence. So generally, appearances preclude the extreme of nihilism, not the extreme of existence. The extreme of existence means that phenomena are inherently existent. That's what means the extreme of existence. That's the far end of existence, not just the middle way where phenomena are empty of inherent existence, but the extreme view, the wrong view of existence means that they're inherently existent. So generally, that is precluded or eliminated through meditating on emptiness. That's the general view. But here, when appearances preclude the extreme of existence, that would mean when you see appearances, you know that they are not truly existent. And emptiness, when you have a view of emptiness, precludes the extreme of annihilation. Generally, from a beginning point of view, when you talk about the view of emptiness, when you have a view of emptiness, that usually precludes the extreme of existence, that phenomena are not inherently existent. That goes along with it. But when you have perfected the view, all of these support one another. Even the view of emptiness precludes the extreme of non-existence, annihilation. And how emptiness appears as cause and effect, you will never be enthralled by wrong views. This is how that text has, your text has. Furthermore, appearance eliminates the extreme of existence. Maybe you could say when. Appearance eliminates the extreme of existence, and emptiness eliminates the extreme of non-existence. If you realize how emptiness manifests in the manner of cause and effect, then you are not captivated by wrong notions holding extreme views. This is a special flavor of Lama Tsongkhapa's presentation of the right view of emptiness. So we'll review a little bit of that next time, but let me just introduce the next verse now. This completes the general presentation of the Sutra path. Of course, Sutra path is enormous, you know, but now training the mind in the uncommon path of the Vajrayana. So the first one is preparing oneself for the tantric path and keeping tantric vows and pledges purely. Dena, then, Dorje Zimpe Depongi Tinle, through the kindness of the Dorje Zimpe Debong, here it says Captain Vajradhara. Actually, Dorje Zimpa doesn't mean Vajradhara. Vajradhara is Dorje Chang, right? In Tibetan. Dorje Zimpa usually refers to the holder of the Vajra, meaning a human form or a guru, maybe he's actually Buddha, but appearing as a human who is taking the aspect of being tantrically realized like that. So you're sort of like the tantric guru. Due to the kindness of my the leader, my Depong, the leader who is holding the Vajra. Is that the same there? In crossing the depths of Tantra? Then, yeah, same text. Then crossing the depths of the ocean of Tantra through the kindness of my captain Vajradhara, or through my leader who holds the Vajra. Dena Dorje Zimpe Debongi Tinle, through the kindness Gyude Gyatso Jingelte, so entering into the ocean of Tantra. So Jingel means sort of like the place where you put the boat into the river or into the ocean. Sort of you begin your travel there, sort of the demarcation between the land and the ocean. So Gyude Gyatso Jingelte, the entering into the ocean of the tantras, the tantric sets. Gyu means tantra, de here means sets of tantra. So there are many sets, you know, there's the four schools of four tantric levels, the Kriya Tantra, Charya Tantra, Yoga Tantra, highest Yoga Tantra. So due to the kindness of that, entering into this ocean of the tantric sets, I seek your blessings that I may hold my vows and pledges, the root of all attainments, siddhis, dearer than my own life. I should cherish them more than my life. So this is the first introduction of, you know, when we talk about entering into the tantric path, why would we even talk about tantra? Sounds dangerous, right? It is dangerous. That is to say, it's a quick path that can lead to enlightenment in as little as one lifetime. Even with the lower tantras, you can, through the practice of the lower tantras, extending your lifespan many, many fold, you can achieve enlightenment or through the highest yoga tantra, even in the short lifespan of this life, without extending the lifespan, you can achieve enlightenment in 3 years. Or maybe even, according to some, even shorter than that. Generally, the fact that Tantra is a higher, you more sophisticated presentation of the Buddhist path to enlightenment doesn't mean that it is suitable for everyone. Generally speaking, to really practice Tantra effectively, you need to have even greater renunciation and compassion than one finds on the Bodhisattva path. It shouldn't be that you want to achieve, because this path can bring enlightenment quickly, that's what you've got to have. The motivation has to be that out of an incredible compassion for sentient beings, finding it unbearable that they would have to wait for your achieving of enlightenment to lead them for maybe 3 countless great eons, you must do so now. This is sort of like the proper motivation for entering into Tantra. Sometimes tantric initiations are given at the center, different lamas come, or you may hear of initiations at other centers. No need to rush out. When the time is right, when you're familiar with the 3 principles of the path, which are sort of the renunciation, the right view of emptiness, and bodhicitta, when they have been cultivated in your mind stream and the right situation arises, it will be natural maybe to take a tantric initiation. So this verse is talking about from the point of view of Tantra, the achievement of realizations or siddhis, not C-I-T-I-E-S, like, different cities in Malaysia or Singapore or something, but siddhi, S-I-D-D-H-I, means actual attainments, higher attainments. So there are different kinds of siddhis. There are common siddhis, the ability to have clairvoyance or to emanate many bodies and so forth, to fly in the air, to go under the earth, and different kinds of things like this. There are different enumerations of different siddhis. The Maha Siddhas, siddhas are individuals who have siddhis, that is, realized beings. I think in the Kargya tradition, they call druptops, those who have achieved siddhis, siddhas, in other words, they are siddhas. The Maha Siddhas, the 84 Maha Siddhas and so forth, were individuals in the past who had these incredible powers, but those are called the common siddhis. The ultimate siddhi is the achievement of enlightenment. So the achievement of enlightenment through the practice of Tantra, and even the lower siddhis, depends on keeping your vows that you take when you take a tantric empowerment. So in order to practice Tantra, you have to be introduced by your Dorji Zimba, your holder of the Vajra, your Vajra guru, so to speak, who is your leader in entering into the ocean of the tantric sets. And due to their kindness, you are introduced to the tantras, how to practice them sequentially. And in order to bring about success in that path, you have to keep the vows and commitments that you take at that time. So when we say here vows and pledges, so that we say Dompa in Tibetan means vows, and Damsig here is translated as pledges. You can say commitments also, which means samayas, the different kinds of commitments that you hold. Generally, although it's not always this way, vows means things that you promise not to do. You vow not to do this. And pledges or commitments or samayas are things that you promise to do. So you have both kinds of things when you take a tantric empowerment. And tantric empowerment, in a sense, likened to the empowerment of a king or queen, or prince, when they're given various implements of the, like the king's scepter and the crown is put on their head, and the cape and all of this sort of stuff, and they are invested with the power of being a sovereign. So that's a little bit like in the course of a tantric empowerment, the guru, the Dorji Zimba, the holder of the Vajra, was your tantric guru who was giving this. They themselves meditate on emptiness, arise as the deity, and they call upon the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, the tantric deities, and so forth, to be present, and in their presence, with the guru's presence, invoking the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and deities, they try to conjure up through their explanation an experience of the tantric path in you, so that you are then afterwards empowered. You have the permission to practice these things. Generally speaking, you shouldn't practice the various practices of Tantra unless you've received an empowerment into that Tantra. There are some exceptions. You can always practice the visualizing Shakyamuni Buddha. You can certainly visualize the deities in front of you without empowerment. That's visualizing Tara, doing Tara Puja and Manjushri Puja, Chandresi Puja. But for yourself to arise, visualizing yourself as the deity, that requires having received an empowerment through the bestowal of a guru, calling upon the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and tantric deities to be present and give their permission for you to, sort of introducing you to them and them to you, that you are then qualified to practice that. Okay, so next time we'll do a little review of the emptiness, again, this verse, and then talk about the two stages of Tantra. The next two verses about what's called the generation stage, when we talk about highest yoga Tantra, and the completion stage. So let me end there with giving you a chance to ask any questions. If you have some questions, maybe you have lots of questions, too many.
Okay, we have a question from Violet.
Oh, Violet always has a question. Good. Hi, Violet.
Yeah, Violet, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, Venerable. Thank you very much for the teaching. I'd like to know, basically, people Dao faculties like me, faculty like me.
Dao faculty like you.
Yes,
Okay.
I don't foresee out in this life we're able to have space like meditation on emptiness. But however, can I start on the illusory like meditations on emptiness? In the sense that whatever I see, I will tell myself that, oh, this is not true. This is not real. It's a dream. Will that help?
Yeah, that can help. I remember Lama Yeshe, once when we were at Kopan, we were first ordained. This was like 1976 or something. And Venerable Sangye Khandro, people were asking questions of Lama, and Venerable Sangye Khandro asked, when she was a young girl, now she's old like I am, she said, Lama, how can we meditate on emptiness as a beginner? And Lama said, I remember he said something very affectionate, oh, little Sangye Khandro, something like that. He said, one thing is just to recognize how often you are mistaken. Like say you thought it was 2 o'clock and it's 1 o'clock, or something simple like that. Or you're in a line buying a ticket for the train and someone comes up and bumps you and you think that they are trying to take your spot, but actually it's, you know, you get angry and you turn around and you see it's your friend, and they weren't trying to take your spot, they were just joking with you. And you realize that you had perceived them as an enemy, you know, someone who's trying to jump the line, and you realize, oh, there's not that way at all. Or you're at a party and you're standing on one side of a plant, and you, on the other side of the plant, they don't see you as some person you thought always hated you, and they're telling a friend, oh, you know, Violet is such a wonderful person, and this and this, and you realize that your perception of them as hating you or something doesn't exist at all. So that's a little bit like illusory like meditation. So certainly, but in general, in order for that, the illusion-like samadhi, because actually it would mean a single-pointed concentration with your eyes open or your senses functioning, realizing how these things are appearing to be inherently existent, but knowing that they are not inherently existent because of your previous meditation on emptiness. That's the general way that's done. But as you're asking here, I think is a valid, something that we can imagine now. What can make it more real is to give the examples of how in a dream, when you wake from your dream, say to yourself, oh my gosh, that seems so real. I was really caught up into that. I was really afraid, or I was really excited. And then to realize how it doesn't exist that way at all. And then to think, that's the way that what is happening now. This is like, this outer world is like the dream. And that when I wake into a recognition of emptiness, when I wake into the space-like meditation on emptiness, I will recognize that this is totally not existent. Right now, I just have to use the examples like an illusion, like a dream, like the reflection of a moon and a body of water. Does that help?
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Vani.
Okay, we have a question from PK Tam.
PK Tam.
Yeah.
Hi, Venerable. Thank you for the excellent teaching. I'm Poon King.
Oh, Poon King. Okay, Poon King.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would like to take the opportunity to ask you or clarify some terminologies which I would like to clarify. There are several, actually, 3 or 4. The first one is that what is the exact meaning of clear nature of the mind? Does it refer to clear and knowing? That's the first one I would like to ask.
Okay, so there's different, slightly different contexts. Generally, the definition of mind in the, very renowned in the Tibetan tradition, I haven't seen it exactly in Sanskrit, but generally we say the mind is that which is clear and knowing. So 2 aspects. So that clarity can be explained in different ways. When you talk about higher teachings, let's say in Tantra, it means the clear light nature of the mind. That is to say, like when we do the Mahamudra meditation, first of all, we try to let go of all conceptual thoughts. We're trying to watch the mind itself, okay? The Mahamudra meditation. You try to, with one part of the mind, look at the rest of the mind. Okay, at first, there are all these thoughts in the mind that are there. When you let go of those thoughts, you don't follow them. Like say, generally, when we think of one thing, our mind thinks of that, and then there's an association to something else and something like, oh, pizza is good, but oh, the best pizza is made down there, but oh, but that costs too much to go there. You know, we keep on thinking and all of these things, letting go of any proliferations of the mind, just sitting quietly, letting the thoughts subdue, you begin to eventually apprehend a basic space-like nature of the mind, a clarity of the mind that is there. That's not like space in well, different points of view. You can take it as a positive phenomenon, just the clarity of the mind that's constantly there. And the other aspect of mind is its knowingness. The mind is that which is clear and knowing. So well, let me leave it there for that, for the time being. What are some of your other terminologies?
Okay. The other ones are that's subject clear light. Subject clear light means emptiness of one's mind in one's continuum, whereas objective clear light, meaning emptiness of phenomena other than the person.
So you're asking or you're stating?
I'm asking and just wondering whether my interpretation is correct, or in other words, maybe you would like to enlighten me, explain to me what is subject clear
sounds
light.
like you know more than I do about. So subjective clear light and objective clear light. So when we talk again, more from the point of view of Tantra, okay, this tantric experience. So clear light, let's say when we have an experience of the nature of the mind, that's generally called the conventional clear light, the conventional nature of the mind. The Dalai Lama has sometimes referred to that as a conventional Buddha nature. Generally, Buddha nature, even in the sutra system, Buddha nature means the emptiness of the mind, the ultimate nature of the mind. So at the time of deep meditation, or let's say at the time of death, when all of the sense powers degenerate, the mind becomes more and more subtle, and the most subtle nature of the mind that we are unaware of now generally. It's always there, but it's like, you know the example, have you ever seen an eclipse of the sun?
Yes, in the pictures.
So if there's a really good eclipse, you know, most of the sun is covered during the daytime. You see around you the stars in the sky that are usually not there to your perception, right? There's just blue sky.
Yes.
So like that, when the general flow of energy in our system, the airs, the prana, subsides and enters into the central channel, the subtlemost mind can appear, sort of like those stars that are always there but are imperceptible because of the domination of the sun-like samsaric appearances, you know, conventional appearances. So that experience of mind is called the clear light of death. Okay. Oftentimes, for most of us, it goes unnoticed. Our minds are so dull. If one is trained in the practice of Tantra through meditation on inducing that state, that clarity, that's essentially called the subjective clear light, the mind itself, its nature. The objective clear light is that which can be perceived by that clear, subtle mind, which is the meaning of emptiness. So the objective clear light refers to emptiness. The subjective clear light refers to the consciousness itself. Generally, we always have a subject and an object. The subject being the consciousness, which is clear and knowing. And the object, in this case, when you talk about the objective clear light, refers to the nature of that mind, which is emptiness, the ultimate nature of that mind, which is emptiness.
Okay, sure, thanks. So in other words, one is consciousness, one's consciousness, clear and knowing. The other is the emptiness of one's consciousness, which is...
Yes, well, which is the same as the emptiness of all phenomena. But
okay, yeah.
in that, when you talk about clear light, generally you're referring to the emptiness of that consciousness itself. So when one has a complete experience of that, there's no longer, it's like water poured into water. There's no longer an experience of a sense of the consciousness here and the object of emptiness there. They're merged.
Okay, thank you. My another question is that...
Thanks. It's getting quite late in US. We
Oh no,
to be fair to other participants.
It may be late there.
We have one question
also,
from Kat.
Yeah, one more question from who? From Kat?
From Catherine. Can we have a question from Catherine?
Catherine, yeah. Hi, Catherine.
Yep, thanks. Catherine, can you unmute yourself?
So Punken, you can write me, you can email me, okay?
Okay, Venerable George, when one is meditating on the nature of the mind, and if there's a lot of pain that arises, how do we overcome that? I mean, bodily pain.
Yeah, so to...
Getting older.
I remember asking Lama Lundup. You remember Lama Lundup?
Yes.
When early days before he was the abbot, I remember when I was doing Tara meditation and trying to meditate on the Tam in my heart chakra, you know, the syllable Tam.
Yes.
Supposed to represent this Tara, and feeling some like lung, you know, so pain. And Lama Lundup reminded, you know, what you have to do then is just recognize all of this is the nature of light, rather than feeling physical about it. Just let go. And just recognizing that this is the nature of your guru's mind, sort of letting go, like being in the presence of your guru where you feel calm, and also the nature of light. So that's one thing, that's very simple. Then also to do the various exercises, the breathing meditation, you know, the 9-round breathing meditation where you breathe in white light that comes and pervades your whole body and burns up all of the defiled winds in your body that act as support for attachment, anger, and indifference, ignorance. Breathing out, then breathe out the other nostril, all of that out to the universe so it has nothing to do with you. Breathing in white light in the other nostril, letting that burn up all the energy within you, breathing that out the other nostril, and then breathing in both nostrils, white light, holding that, and imagine all of that burning up the last vestiges of the defiled winds in your body that prevent you from comfortably meditating. And imagine, rather than, even though you breathe out, imagine that they enter into the central channel
Mm-hmm.
Then, of course, if you've studied the 6 yogas of Naropa, there's certain exercises that you can do, but generally that's those breathing meditations, and then meditating on your body like a rainbow. That is,
Okay.
you alternate. 5 minutes, you do the breathing meditation, breathing out the defiled winds. Then you imagine you scan your body from the top through your face, your neck, your shoulders, your chest, your belly, your backside, your legs, down to your toes. Imagining that as you scan down, it all becomes the nature of light. No bones, all the bones become light, all the flesh, the muscles, the sinews, all become the nature of light, like transparent. Only thing that's there is like the demarcation of your skin, like a rainbow.
Okay.
Holding that single pointedly is not a meditation on emptiness, just like letting go, relaxing, meditating on your body like this, what's it called? Songra, I think it's called. Meditating on that body like a rainbow-like body. Sit for some time and then, relax. Then do the breathing meditation. Maybe in one session, you might alternate 3 or 4 times, take a break. That itself can help to get rid of any residual kind of discomfort in the body.
Okay. I will try it out. I'll try it out and see whether it works for me.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so.
Okay. Thank you,
Okay.
Venerable George.
Thank you so much. I've kept you a long time. It's already 10 or 11:45. You need to go to lunch. Thank you so much. I hope to see you. Hope you guys. Hope to see you next week. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Venerable. Bye.
Bye now.